she said. Let's just be friends after 2 years together. I said, perfect. Then I treated her exactly like I treat my other friends, with boundaries. She discovered what just friends really meant when I started dating her best friend. It was a Thursday evening, an ordinary one, or so I thought. I walked into the living room, a little tired from the day, expecting Tara to be sitting on the couch, like she usually was when I got home. Instead, she was standing, her arms folded, her eyes looking anywhere but at me. She was nervously biting her lip, and the moment I saw that, I knew something was coming. Alan, she began, her voice soft but steady. We need to talk. I could feel my stomach drop. That was never a good sign. We'd been fine. Or at least, I thought we had been. We'd spent 2 years together, one of those living together, sharing almost every part of our lives. We had made future plans, talked about her sister's wedding next summer, where I was supposed to be her +1. We were in sync, or so I thought. But now, standing there in front of me, her gaze shifting nervously, I realized everything had just changed. I love you, she said, but there was a hesitation there. It was the kind of hesitation that made the words feel empty. But I'm not in love with you anymore. Those words hit me harder than I expected. They hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I wanted to say something, ask her why, question what had happened. But she wasn't finished. I think we should transition to being friends, she continued, her voice shaky now. We get along so well. We have the same friends, similar interests. We'd make amazing friends, but not amazing partners. I didn't know how to respond. I wanted to tell her that this was absurd, that I didn't want to be just friends after everything. But she kept talking like she was trying to convince herself more than me. I just need to find myself, she said, her eyes darting around the room. I need to explore who I am outside of us. I shook my head, feeling a mix of confusion and frustration. You want to break up, but keep me around? When I said it like that, it sounded worse than I had intended. Tara flinched, but she didn't back down. I don't want to lose you completely, she said, her voice quieter now, almost pleading. I just think we'd be better as friends. We can still hang out, still be part of each other's lives. I tried to process what she was saying. We were supposed to be planning a future together, talking about having kids one day. Now, she was telling me that was all over, just like that. Then, Tara had already packed a bag, and in the silence that followed, I could hear the sound of a car pulling up outside. Her friend Marissa was coming to pick her up. I stared at her, unable to find the words. You've already got an exit strategy. I knew you'd be upset, she said, almost apologetically. Marissa said I could crash with her while we figure out the living situation. The living situation. I repeated, my voice rising. You mean the apartment? Yeah, she said, looking uncomfortable. We'll need to sort that out, but there's no rush. We're adults. We're friends. We can make this work. I couldn't believe it. 2 years, plans for the future. And now she was standing here, ready to walk out. I tried to gather my thoughts, but I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. Okay, I finally said, my voice flat, surprised. Okay, yeah, let's be friends. You're right, we should be able to make this work as adults. Tara smiled, a relieved look washing over her face. Oh, thank God. I was so worried you'd hate me or make this difficult. It was the way she said it, like this was all just part of some perfect plan she had mapped out in her head. I stood there, watching her gather her things, as Marissa's car idled outside, waiting to take her away. That night Tara left. She didn't even say goodbye in the way I thought she might. She just grabbed her bag, gave me one last look, and walked out the door. Marissa, standing in the doorway, shot me a pitying look as if I were some kick puppy. I just waved, too stunned to feel much else. The next morning Tara texted me. It was early, just after 7. Hey, hope you slept okay. Could you drop off my work laptop? I forgot it in the rush. I didn't reply right away. I wasn't sure how to respond to something so casual after everything. But when I did, I kept it simple. Sure. I'll leave it at the front desk of your office Monday. Can't you bring it by Marissa's? I need it for the weekend. I paused for a moment before typing my reply. I've got plans. Monday works better for me. She didn't like that, but what was she going to say? We were just friends now, right? I wasn't obligated to drop everything for her, not anymore. It was then that I realized just how different her idea of friends was from mine. The next few days passed in a blur, a strange mixture of numbness and disbelief. Tara's words echoed in my head and I couldn't help but replay that moment over and over. The words, "Let's just be friends," kept resurfacing like a broken record, and I found myself trying to make sense of it. How was I supposed to move on from 2 years of shared plans, laughter, arguments, and quiet mornings together, just like that? I didn't know what to do with myself. The apartment felt emptier than it ever had. The familiar hum of Tara's presence was gone. I couldn't even smell her perfume in the hallway anymore, and the silence was almost suffocating. It wasn't even about the breakup. It was the way she seemed so sure of herself, like she was pulling the rug out from under me and expecting me to keep standing there, smiling like it was some kind of new arrangement. Friends. How could I be just friends with someone I'd spent so long thinking of as the woman I was going to build a life with? But Tara seemed perfectly fine with it. She had already made her decision, and I was just supposed to fall into line. She was leaving but still wanted to have all the benefits of me being around without the actual commitment. And that was something I couldn't do. Not anymore. That morning, I woke up early and decided to tackle things head-on. If this was going to work, if I was really supposed to treat her like just another friend, I needed to set boundaries. I didn't owe her anything more than that. She didn't get to call all the shots while I quietly accepted her new reality. I wasn't going to sit around hoping she'd change her mind. I was done waiting for something that wasn't coming. I grabbed my phone, seeing the text from her already waiting there. "Hey, hope you slept okay. Could you drop off my work laptop? I forgot it in the rush." I stared at the screen for a moment, feeling the impulse to just say, "Sure, no problem," like I always had, but I didn't. This wasn't normal. We weren't in a relationship anymore, and I couldn't keep pretending like things hadn't changed. I took a breath, typed my response, and hit send. "Sure. I'll leave it at the front desk of your office Monday." The reply came quickly. "Can't you bring it by Marissa's? I need it for the weekend." I paused, feeling my chest tighten. "I've got plans," I typed. "Monday works better for me." I didn't know why she'd expected anything different. I wasn't her boyfriend anymore. And friends. Didn't drop everything for each other. But I knew this wasn't going to go over well. Sure enough, a few minutes later she sent another text. "What plans?" I couldn't help the smirk that tugged at my lips. It felt good, in a weird way, to be taking back control, to not be at her beck and call. I'd been living for her for so long, adjusting to her moods, her needs. It felt liberating to stand up for myself, even if it was just over something small. I responded with the truth. "Friends stuff?" There was a pause before she texted again. "This is weird," she said. "Why are you being like this?" I could almost hear the confusion in her words. She wasn't used to me pushing back. Tara always liked to call the shots. But now I wasn't playing her game anymore. "Like what?" I asked. "Distant." "Cold." I almost laughed. "Cold, I was just being friendly." It was exactly what she asked for, right? She wanted to find herself. And I wasn't about to be her emotional crutch while she figured it out. I wasn't going to hold her hand through this process. Not when she'd already checked out of our relationship. I wasn't the one who was being distant. She was the one who'd emotionally abandoned me. "I'm being friendly. Literally what you asked for," I texted back. It wasn't long before she dropped the subject, but I could tell she wasn't happy with how I was handling things. I felt a little guilty at first. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. She was the one who decided to end things. She was the one who wanted to break up, but now she expected everything to stay the same. She wanted all the comfort of a relationship without the responsibility. That was the part that was hardest for me to accept. She still wanted to come by whenever she felt like it, still wanted to use my things, still expected to be able to reach out whenever she needed something. But I was done with that. The next day, it happened. Tara showed up at the apartment while I was out. She had still kept a key, I realized. The thought of it made my stomach twist. How had I let this happen? How had I let her hold on to that key? When I walked through the door later, I noticed that she had helped herself to the groceries in the fridge, had done a load of laundry, and even taken a shower. The place smelled like her shampoo and the scent of soap she always used. I stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of the situation settle on me. I picked up my phone and sent her a text. Hey, noticed you came by. I'll need the key back when you get a chance. A few moments later, my phone buzzed. What? Why? She replied. My friends don't have keys to my place. I texted back. We can arrange times for you to pick up your stuff, just like friends do when they need to get their things. The audacity of it. She still saw herself as entitled to my space, my time. I was done with it. I had to be. She didn't reply immediately. It was like she was waiting for me to back down, to apologize for being petty. Instead, I spent the next few hours doing what needed to be done, changing the locks and giving notice for the apartment. It felt strange, like I was severing more than just physical ties. I was cutting away the last of the emotional connection, the last vestige of what we once were. When she showed up that evening, furious, I didn't back down. I had already packed up her things, a box sitting on the counter. She stormed in, her eyes flashing. You changed the locks, she yelled. I looked her in the eye. No, just rekeyed them. You no longer live here. Here's a box of your stuff. Her face went pale. She was silent for a moment, and then, just like that, the entitlement was back. This is ridiculous, she said. We used to live together. I nodded. Now we're friends. I had to say it. It was the only way to make it real. The only way to make this new reality stick. I wasn't gonna pretend anymore. Tara was no longer my girlfriend. She was just a friend, just like anyone else. But Tara didn't see it that way. She was furious, her sense of entitlement flaring up like a firestorm. And that was when I knew this wasn't going to be as easy as I thought. The days after the lock change and the final confrontation felt strange. It wasn't just the emptiness in the apartment. It was the feeling that I was living in two different worlds. One where Tara was still in my life, and another where she wasn't. I kept telling myself that I was doing the right thing, that I was setting boundaries, but it didn't make the absence of her any easier. I missed the small things, the way she hummed while she cooked, or how she would steal the last bite of my pizza when I wasn't looking. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how unhealthy it had been for me to let her walk all over those boundaries for so long. It wasn't that I didn't care about her. It was just that I had to care more about myself now. If she wanted to go on some self-discovery journey while keeping me as her emotional safety net, I couldn't let her do that. It wasn't long before I noticed something strange. I hadn't heard from Tara since the lock incident. I half expected her to text me, still acting like everything was fine, but instead, she seemed to pull away entirely. For the first time, it felt like I was finally the one in control of my life. Then, a week later, the text came. Hey, can you drop by and grab my yoga mat? I left it in the closet when I picked up my things. I read the message and then stared at it for a moment. The fact that she was still asking me for favors, like nothing had changed, was maddening. I almost wrote back, offering to leave it at her new place, but I caught myself. I wasn't her boyfriend anymore. She didn't get to ask me for things whenever it was convenient. Instead, I typed, I'll leave it in the hallway for you. Just pick it up when you have a chance. Her response was swift, but it made something click in me. What's with you? Why are you being like this? I had been waiting for that. I could feel the pressure in my chest as I read the message, but I didn't back down. I wasn't going to play her game anymore. I'm being friendly. Just like you asked. I typed back. It was odd how freeing it felt to stand firm, even though I knew she wasn't happy about it. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I wasn't trying to prove a point. I was just setting the boundaries that I needed to heal. But Tara's confusion and frustration were clear. She didn't understand what it meant to be just friends. That weekend, I went out with some of my friends, not even thinking about Tara. I had made plans with Jake and a few others, something we hadn't done in a while. The night was filled with laughter and easy conversation, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't constantly thinking about Tara. When I came home late that night, I was expecting to collapse on the couch and binge, watch something mindless. Instead, there was a text waiting for me, this time from her. Can we talk? I think we need to sort this out. I felt a wave of frustration, followed by a strange sense of calm. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to sort anything out anymore. I was done with the emotional roller coaster. But the pull of wanting closure was hard to ignore. Part of me wanted to hear her explain everything, even though I knew the real reason. Tara had wanted the freedom to explore her options, but she hadn't expected me to move on so quickly. Sure, I replied. We can talk tomorrow afternoon. I have plans tonight. A few hours later, she texted again. Is it with Marissa? I didn't answer right away. The silence felt better than anything I could have said. Marissa. It wasn't like I'd intentionally gone after her. But somehow, Tara's friend, the one she'd probably thought she could rely on in the event that I didn't work out, had become the person I was spending my time with. I wasn't going to apologize for that. The next day, Tara and I met for coffee at a small cafe near the apartment. I walked in and saw her sitting at a table, already stirring her drink nervously. When I approached, she looked up, giving me a hesitant smile. So, I said, sitting down across from her, what's this about? She took a deep breath, then let out a sigh. I think I made a mistake. I raised an eyebrow. About what? About us. I don't know, I just don't think I should have ended things like that. Maybe we rushed into the whole friends thing. I could feel the shift in the air. The emotional undertone she was trying to keep hidden. She still wasn't ready to accept the reality. She wanted the safety of having me around, but only when it was convenient for her. You wanted to be friends. I reminded her. I'm treating you like one. I'm not doing anything that you didn't ask for. Tara looked down at her cup, almost ashamed. I just thought we could still have some of the things we used to have. You know, hang out, talk, be there for each other. I'm still here for you, I said, keeping my tone calm. But friends don't rely on each other the same way. That's the difference. She didn't look convinced. I guess I didn't expect it to feel so different. And there it was, the real reason behind her change of heart. She didn't like the boundaries. She didn't like that I was treating her like any other friend. She wanted to keep the emotional intimacy without the commitment. I'm sorry if this is hard, I said, standing up. But this is what we agreed on. If it's too much for you, I can give you space. But I need you to respect the boundaries. She didn't answer right away. I could tell she was wrestling with something inside herself. But I wasn't going to be the one to fix it. I had already done enough of that over the past 2 years. I'll see you around, I said, walking out. That was the last time I saw Tara alone. From then on, everything would be different. I was done letting her call the shots. And, in a way, I was relieved. The harder part was over. Now I just had to live my life. I didn't expect things to be easy. But I didn't think it would be this complicated either. After our conversation, Tara stayed away for a while. There were no more texts asking for things she had left behind, or requests for me to drop everything and help her with whatever she needed. I thought that maybe, just maybe, she was starting to get the message. Then, that Saturday night, our mutual friend group decided to together for a game night. It was the kind of thing we used to do regularly before everything changed. I had been looking forward to it, not to get back to the way things were, but because I needed to be around people who were just, well, people. Not exes, not emotional entanglements, just friends. I hadn't seen the group in a while, and I knew it would be a nice distraction from everything that had been happening. I arrived a little early, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and found a seat at the table. The others trickled in one by one, each of them settling into their usual spots, their chatter filling the room with an easy energy. It felt normal. It felt like I could just relax. Then, Tara walked in. I had been half expecting it. Tara was always a part of our group, and despite everything, I knew she'd probably show up. What I wasn't prepared for was the man beside her. This is Connor, she announced loudly, her voice carrying across the room. When met at yoga, I felt my stomach twist. Connor was tall, broad-shouldered, with an easy smile. He looked like the kind of guy Tara would go for. It was clear she was introducing him in front of everyone, like she was making some kind of statement. Like she was showing me that she had moved on, that she was fine without me. I was supposed to care, to feel jealous, or to feel something. But I didn't. I stood up, offering a hand to Connor. Nice to meet you, I said, keeping my voice steady. I didn't care about Tara's new guy, not really. If she wanted to show off, let her. I wasn't going to play along. I was going to enjoy the night, just like I had planned. The evening passed with the usual banter. The game started, and I didn't give Connor or Tara any special attention. I played like I always had, joking around with the others, staying focused on the game. I could feel Tara's eyes on me more than once, and I could almost see the frustration building on her face as she realized that I wasn't reacting the way she expected. She kept glancing at me as I destroyed everyone at Codenames, making sure to act like she didn't care, but it was obvious she was watching. Every time I looked up, her eyes would flick away. It was a game to her. She wanted me to care. She wanted me to show that I was hurt or upset, but I didn't. A couple of hours in, Tara cornered me in the kitchen. I had just refilled my drink when I turned around to find her standing there, her arms crossed. "You don't even care that I'm here with someone else," she said, her voice low, almost accusing. I looked at her, confused. "Why would I? You're not even a little jealous." I almost laughed. Was she serious? I had spent so long trying to get her to respect me, trying to get her to see that I wasn't some fallback option. Now she was trying to make me jealous. I shrugged. "Are you jealous when your other friends date people?" Tara blinked, her face flushing as she struggled to come up with a response. "That's different," she muttered. "Yeah," I said, "it is." I turned to walk back into the living room, leaving her standing there. I didn't owe her any more of my emotional energy. But the evening wasn't over yet. As the game continued, I noticed that Marissa, Tara's best friend, had been acting a little different. She kept finding excuses to talk to me, laughing at my jokes a little longer than necessary, and even touched my arm a couple of times as we shared a joke. It was nothing big, just friendly banter, but it felt different than usual. The others didn't seem to notice, but I did. At some point, I couldn't help but wonder if maybe there was something there. Something that had always been there, but that I had never noticed. Marissa was funny, smart, and, if I was being honest, easy to talk to. But it wasn't like I was trying to make something happen. I wasn't looking for drama. I was just living my life. And I wasn't going to let Tara's emotional games dictate how I interacted with people anymore. Around midnight, the game wrapped up. Tara and Connor had left a while ago, probably so she could show him off some more or to spend the night together. I didn't care. I just wanted to get home. But as I stood up to grab my things, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Tara. "What was that with you and Marissa?" I sighed, knowing what was coming. I had been expecting this. She wouldn't be able to let go of her control over the situation, not without trying to stir things up. I responded as casually as I could. "What was what?" "You know what?" she shot back, "the flirting." I frowned, unsure how to respond. Flirting? Really? I hadn't been flirting. Marissa had just been talking to me. I hadn't been trying to make anything happen. "We were just talking," I said. "Friends talk." Her reply came almost instantly. "She's my best friend, and I'm your friend too, right? Friends can be friends with each other's friends." I could almost feel her frustration through the screen. She didn't get it. She wanted me to still care about her, to feel like I was still emotionally tied to her. But I wasn't. I had moved on. I was just living my life without the drama. A few days passed, and Tara didn't reach out again. But I knew this wasn't over. It wouldn't be. She was still clinging to the idea that I would fall back into her orbit. She wasn't used to this new version of me, the one who was setting boundaries, not accepting emotional manipulation. But the best part, I was starting to see it for what it was. Tara wasn't really interested in being friends. She was interested in keeping me around as a safety net. Someone who would always be there for her emotionally while she figured things out. But I wasn't playing that game anymore. It was time to move on. The weeks that followed our game night were strange. I was learning to navigate life without Tara in it, adjusting to the new normal. It wasn't easy, not exactly. Every day felt like I was shedding old skin, one layer at a time. But I wasn't miserable. In fact, I had moments where I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't realized I had been missing. Still, Tara's shadow lingered. She didn't reach out much after our last conversation. I guess I had expected her to. In some way, she had always been the one to initiate the conversations when things got uncomfortable. But this time, it was different. It was like she was waiting for me to come crawling back, waiting for me to apologize for setting boundaries. And I wasn't going to do that. I had made my peace with it. She'd made her choice, and now I was making mine. Then, one Thursday afternoon, I was sitting at my desk, sipping coffee and working through some emails, when I saw a message from her. "I think we need to talk." I groaned, already feeling the frustration rise. "Not this again." I didn't want to go through another round of her manipulating the situation or trying to make me feel guilty for moving on. I almost didn't respond, but I had to know what she wanted. It had been a few weeks. Maybe she was finally starting to accept it. "What's up?" I texted back, trying to keep it as neutral as possible. The reply came quickly. "I think I made a mistake," Tara wrote. "We need to talk in person." I felt my pulse quicken. A part of me, an annoying, lingering part, wanted to know what she meant by that. Maybe I was just curious, or maybe I was still holding on to small hope that she'd finally come to her senses. But whatever the reason, I agreed to meet her. We met at a small cafe. It was a place Tara and I used to visit often, back when things were simple. I remember the smell of fresh coffee in the air, the soft murmur of conversations around us, the gentle clink of cups and plates. It was like I had stepped into a time before everything went wrong. Tara was already sitting at a table when I walked in. She looked the same, but somehow different. There was a weight to her, like she had been carrying something heavy for a while. When she saw me, she gave a small, tentative smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. I sat down across from her, unsure of how to begin. "What's going on?" I asked. She looked at her hands, clasped tightly on the table, before meeting my eyes. "I don't know," she said quietly. "I've been thinking a lot about everything, about us." I raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. I didn't want to get my hopes up. This wasn't the first time she'd said something like this. "I think I made a huge mistake, Alan," she continued, her voice cracking a little. "I thought I could just walk away and everything would be fine. That I could still keep you in my life like we were just friends." She paused, her face contorting with a mixture of frustration and confusion. "But it's not working. It's not the same." I don't know what I was thinking. I sat back in my chair, crossing my arms, trying to keep my composure. I wasn't angry, not anymore, but there was a part of me that felt vindicated. I had been right. I had known from the beginning that she wasn't really ready to let go. She had just been too afraid to admit it. "So, what now?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm, even though inside I was anything but. "You want to go back to how things were?" Tara shook her head, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "No, I can't just undo everything. I can't erase what we were. But I also can't keep pretending that I'm okay with the way things are now. It's like I'm stuck in this in-between, and I don't know how to move forward." I nodded slowly, taking in her words. I could see it now. She wasn't just confused about our relationship, she was confused about herself. She hadn't figured out who she was without me, without us. And she was expecting me to be her anchor while she tried to find her footing. "Well," I said, taking a deep breath, "I'm not sure what you want from me, Tara. You ended things. You said you wanted to be friends, but I can't just be there for you whenever you feel like it. That's not how this works." She bit her lip, looking down at her hands again. "I know. I don't expect you to drop everything for me. I just..." She trailed off, like she was trying to find the right words, but they wouldn't come. "You just want to know that I'm still there for you." I finished for her, a little more bluntly than I intended. She nodded, her face flushing slightly. "Yeah, maybe." I sighed, feeling the weight of the situation settle on me. I had to say it, even though I knew it would sting. "I can't keep doing this, Tara. I can't keep being your backup. I'm not your safety net. You can't expect me to be okay with you running around figuring out what you want, while I'm just waiting in the wings, pretending like everything's fine." She looked at me with wide eyes, almost hurt. "I wasn't trying to do that to you." "I know you weren't," I said softly. "But that's what it feels like. And I'm done feeling like that. I'm not angry anymore. But I can't go back to being the person who's there for you no matter what." Tara didn't respond right away. Her face was a mix of emotions, guilt, confusion, frustration, but I could see that she was starting to understand. It wasn't that she didn't care about me. It was that she had never really considered what I needed in the first place. "I don't know what you want me to say," she whispered. "I don't need you to say anything," I replied. "I just need you to understand that I'm moving on. I'm not waiting around anymore." It wasn't easy, telling her that, but it felt like the right thing to do. I wasn't going to let her hold me back, not any longer. Not when I had finally started to live for myself. "I get it," she said, looking down at her coffee. "I really do. I just don't know how to fix this." I shook my head. You don't have to fix it, Tara. You just have to let it go. I stood up, leaving the cafe behind, the weight of the conversation still hanging in the air. But I felt lighter. I didn't have all the answers, but I knew I was making the right choice. It was time to move on. Time to finally put myself first. The next few weeks passed by in a strange haze. I had been expecting Tara to reach out again to try to pull me back into her orbit in some way. But nothing came. Not even a simple text or a phone call. It was like she had disappeared from my life completely, and I was left to deal with the remnants of what had been. There were moments when I found myself wondering if I had made the right choice, but each time I asked myself that question, I came back to the same conclusion. She had ended things. She had asked me to be her friend, and I had agreed reluctantly but with clear boundaries. That had been my decision, and I wasn't going to let it unravel now. And then, one night, everything changed. It wasn't a big gesture, at least not at first. I was out with Jake and a few other friends, enjoying some beers and catching up on life. The air was warm, the kind of evening that felt easy and relaxed, with the sound of distant laughter and music coming from a nearby bar. I had no reason to expect that anything out of the ordinary would happen. But then, as I was heading out to grab another round, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting a message from one of my friends. Instead, it was a text from Tara. "Can we talk?" I stopped in my tracks, the weight of those 3 words hitting me harder than I expected. It had been a while since we'd last spoken, and I had been living my life without her. Honestly, I'd been relieved. But now, with just those few words, it felt like I was being pulled back into the mess I'd so carefully untangled. I stared at the screen for a long moment, weighing my options. A part of me wanted to ignore it, to keep moving forward without her. But another part, the part that had spent so much time in emotional limbo with her, was still curious. What did she want now? I took a deep breath and responded, "What about?" Her reply came quickly. "I think I made a mistake. I need to see you." I hesitated, wondering what kind of mistake she was talking about this time. Was it more of the same, another attempt to pull me back in, without fully acknowledging what had gone wrong? Or was she finally ready to accept the reality of the situation? I typed back, "When? Tonight. Please." There was a sense of urgency in her words that caught me off guard. It wasn't like the Tara I had known. This felt different. She wasn't just asking to meet up as if it were any casual conversation. There was something more to it. I thought about it for a moment longer and then agreed. "Fine. I'll be at the coffee shop in 20 minutes. I got there before her as usual. I had always been the one to arrive early, if only to give myself some space to mentally prepare for whatever was about to happen. The place was quiet, dimly lit with warm yellow lights casting shadows across the wooden tables. The smell of freshly brewed coffee hung in the air, and soft music played in the background. It should have been a peaceful setting, but my stomach was in knots. When Tara walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked different. Her eyes were red, her hair disheveled as if she hadn't bothered to fix it. She wasn't wearing the confident, almost polished look I had come to expect from her. Instead, she seemed fragile, vulnerable, almost lost. She spotted me right away and walked over to the table. She didn't smile, didn't offer the usual polite greeting. Instead, she just sat down, her hands shaking slightly as she folded them in front of her. "I shouldn't have texted you," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't think this through. I raised an eyebrow, not sure where this conversation was headed. "Then why did you?" "Because I've been thinking a lot about what happened," she continued, her gaze never quite meeting mine. "And I don't know how to say this, but I was wrong. I thought I could handle being friends with you. I thought I could keep you in my life without feeling like I was losing you." I listened, trying not to let the bitterness I felt show. Tara had always been good at twisting things to make herself sound like the victim, and I wasn't about to fall for it again. "I wasn't honest with you," she went on, her voice trembling now. "I wanted you to stay in my life, but I couldn't let go of the control. I wanted you to be my backup, my safety net, while I figured things out." She let out a shaky breath. "I wanted to keep you around, but I wasn't ready to actually be there for you, not the way you needed." I stared at her, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. This was what I had been waiting for. The apology I never got. The explanation that felt more like an excuse. I had moved on. I had put myself first for once, and now here she was, trying to make me feel sorry for her. I took a deep breath, pushing the anger down. Tara, I've told you before, I'm not your backup. I'm not here to be your emotional crutch while you figure out what you want. Her eyes welled up with tears, but I didn't feel pity. I just felt tired. I know, she whispered. I know now. But I didn't realize how much I needed you until I saw you actually move on. That hit me harder than I thought it would. I had expected her to be angry, to accuse me of something, anything, but this. This made me question everything. I had moved on, yes. But did that mean she had finally understood what she lost? Or was she just trying to manipulate me into feeling bad for her again? You can't just walk into my life and expect everything to go back to the way it was. I said, my voice firm. You had your chance, Tara. You made your choice, and I'm not going to keep coming back every time you realize you don't like the consequences. There was a long silence as she wiped her eyes, but she didn't argue. I just needed to hear you say it, she said quietly, almost to herself. I needed to hear you say you were really moving on. I nodded, standing up to leave. I am. And you should, too. As I walked out of the cafe, I could feel the weight of the conversation hanging in the air. Tara was right about one thing. She needed to hear me say I was moving on. But what she didn't understand was that this time, I meant it. I was done being a safety net, done being her backup. I had moved on, and now, it was time for her to do the same. 3 weeks passed after that conversation with Tara, and life started to settle into a rhythm I hadn't realized I needed. I was spending more time with my friends, hanging out with people who respected the boundaries I'd put in place, and gradually, I felt like myself again. The tightness in my chest, the constant waiting for the next emotional bomb to drop, started to loosen. I wasn't living in fear of what Tara would do or say anymore. I had let go, and it felt good. But then, one Friday night, my phone buzzed with a text that I knew was coming. Hey, we need to talk. It was from Tara. At first I didn't respond. Part of me wanted to ignore it completely, to let the silence stretch and pull her out of my life for good. But another part of me, the one that had spent so many years bending over backward for her, knew that I'd eventually have to deal with this. So, I typed a reply. What now? The text came almost immediately. I think I've messed up. I need to explain something. I knew I should have said no. I knew that any further conversation with her would just drag me back into the emotional chaos I had worked so hard to leave behind. But the truth was, a part of me was still curious. It was hard to let go of something that had been such a big part of my life for so long. I agreed to meet her the next afternoon. I showed up at a small park downtown, a neutral spot where we had spent some quiet afternoons together. The air was cool, the sun was bright, and there were families scattered around, enjoying the weekend. I stood by a bench and waited. When I saw Tara walking toward me, I noticed the change right away. She was dressed in a dark jacket and jeans, her hair falling in loose waves around her face, but her eyes, they were different. There was a sadness there, like she had just realized something, and she couldn't hide it. Alan, she said softly when she reached me. I'm really sorry. I just nodded, waiting for her to explain. I've been trying to figure this out. For weeks now. She paused, her eyes searching mine for some kind of reaction. I was wrong about everything. I thought I could break up with you and keep everything the same. I thought I could have you around as a friend without actually letting go of the relationship. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I already knew where this was headed. I had seen this coming from a mile away. I wanted you to be my backup, Alan. She continued, her voice small now, like she was ashamed. I wanted you to be there for me while I figured things out. I thought that if I kept you close, if I just made it about being friends, I wouldn't have to face the reality of what I had done. I didn't realize until now how selfish that was. I'm sorry. Her words hit me, but not in the way I thought they would. I wasn't angry. I wasn't devastated. I felt something different, something more like relief. Relief that I wasn't the one still holding on to this idea of us. Tara was the one who had wanted to keep me around for her convenience. But now that I was moving on, she was realizing how wrong she had been. I think I've been lying to myself, she said, staring down at her shoes. I didn't want to admit how much I still needed you, how much I still cared. But I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I couldn't keep acting like I was fine with just being friends. I had no intention of getting back into the mess we had just untangled, but I couldn't help but feel a twinge of something. Was this real? Was she really owning up to what she had done, or was this just another attempt to pull me back in? Tara, I don't want to go through this again, I said, my voice steady. I moved on. I'm not going to pretend like everything is okay. Like I'm still here waiting for you to decide what you want. I'm not your backup. I'm not the one you can call when you need someone to hold on to. She nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. I know. I finally get it. It was hard for me to watch her like this. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to tell her it was going to be okay, but I couldn't. I had spent too long being there for her when she didn't deserve it, and this time, I was putting myself first. Look, I said, my voice softening just a little. I'm not angry with you. I'm not even upset anymore. But I can't keep going back and forth with you. I can't keep doing this. I've learned that I deserve better than that, and so do you. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and gave me a weak smile. I'm sorry, Alan. I don't know what else to say. You don't have to say anything, I replied. You just need to stop. Stop trying to make me feel guilty. Stop trying to pull me back into your mess. You've made your choice. I've made mine. Tara stood there for a moment, looking at me like she was searching for something. Maybe forgiveness, maybe an explanation for why I wasn't willing to give her another chance. But I wasn't going to give her that. I had given her enough of myself already. Goodbye, Tara, I said, turning away. As I walked away, I felt lighter. Tara's hold on me was slipping, and I was finally free. I wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I was excited to find out. I wasn't waiting for Tara to figure herself out anymore. I was living my life for me. And that felt like the best decision I had ever made. A few days passed after I walked away from that conversation with Tara, and something in me started to settle. It wasn't just the absence of her from my life. It was the sense of control I finally had over my own. I had made peace with everything that had happened, and I was starting to understand how to live for myself without constantly trying to fix things for others. It felt like I could breathe for the first time in a long time. That weekend, Marissa and I decided to take a trip. It wasn't anything major, just a weekend getaway to a small beach town about 2 hours away. The kind of place where you could walk along the shore, without the world crowding in on you. A place to clear your mind and relax. We hadn't been dating for long, but it felt right, easy. For the first time in months, I was able to enjoy the simple act of living, without worrying about someone else's expectations. We left on Friday afternoon. The air was warm. The kind of warmth that hugs you as soon as you step outside. Marissa drove, and we spent the ride talking about everything and nothing. It was light, fun, and there was no tension between us. Just a genuine connection that I hadn't realized I'd been missing. We got to the beach around sunset. The sky was a mixture of soft pinks and oranges, and the sound of the waves crashing against the shore made everything feel calm. It was just the two of us, away from all the noise, away from everything I had been carrying. I didn't even think about Tara. That night, we stayed in a small cabin by the beach. It had a rustic feel to it, with wooden floors that creaked underfoot and windows that overlooked the ocean. The smell of salt water drifted through the open windows, and the breeze was perfect, just cool enough to make it comfortable. We had dinner at a local restaurant, just the two of us enjoying the atmosphere and each other's company. It felt easy. But then, just as we were finishing up dinner, I got a text from one of my friends, Jake. I didn't think much of it at first, but when I opened the message, I froze. Bro, Tara is saying you're only dating Marissa to get back at her. She's telling everyone you're revenge dating. I stared at the screen, trying to process what I was reading. Revenge dating, really? That was the story Tara was spinning now. It made me angry, but it also felt like the final confirmation of everything I had been suspecting all along. She was trying to control the narrative. She was trying to make me look like the villain in her story. I sat there for a moment, feeling a wave of frustration wash over me. Marissa looked up, noticing the change in my expression. "What's wrong?" she asked, concern written all over her face. I showed her the text and she read it quietly. Then, without missing a beat, she looked up at me, a small smile tugging at her lips. Let her say whatever she wants, she said, her voice calm and steady. You know the truth, I know the truth. And so do your friends. That's all that matters. It was exactly what I needed to hear. For the first time I realized just how much I had been letting Tara's opinion of me affect my own sense of self. It didn't matter what she said, how much she tried to manipulate the situation. I wasn't the same person I was when I was with her. I had moved on. And I was done letting her hold power over me. I put my phone down and focused on Marissa, the woman who was standing by me, who had been nothing but supportive from the moment we started spending time together. We spent the rest of the evening talking, laughing, and just enjoying being in each other's company. I let go of the anger, the frustration, and instead, I embraced the peacefulness of the moment. The next day Tara tried again, this time with a message that came in the morning. I'm sorry about what I said. I didn't mean to hurt you. Can we talk? I didn't respond right away. I wasn't angry, but I knew there was no point in revisiting the past. I had done enough of that already. I was done listening to her manipulate me with her guilt trips and apologies. I was done giving her the emotional real estate she had so freely taken up for years. Instead, I spent the day with Marissa. We walked along the beach, our bare feet sinking into the sand, and talked about everything we wanted for the future. Our dreams, our goals, things that had nothing to do with Tara or the past. I didn't feel like I was living in her shadow anymore. I was finally living for me. Later that evening, when I finally got back to my phone, I saw another message from Tara. Are you seriously going to ignore me like this? You're dating my best friend, and now you're cutting me out of your life completely. I didn't deserve this. I read the message once, then again, and then I put my phone on silent. There was no more to say. She was still trying to manipulate the situation, still trying to make herself the victim. But I was done. I never responded. Instead, I focused on Marissa, on the life we were building together. Tara's messages stopped after that. By the time we returned from our weekend trip, I had already made up my mind. I was done trying to figure out what Tara wanted. I had learned all I needed to know. She wanted me as a backup, someone who would always be there while she explored other options. But that wasn't me anymore. I had found someone who didn't need to play games, someone who was ready to build a future without manipulation or uncertainty. Tara's final attempt to disrupt my life ended when I blocked her number. I didn't need any more drama. I didn't need to keep reliving the past. A month later, I was walking through the park with Marissa, the sun shining down on us, when I saw Tara from a distance. She was with her mom, looking lost and unsure of herself. Our eyes met for a moment, but I didn't look away in guilt or anger. I just nodded and kept walking with Marissa by my side. We had moved on, and finally, so had I.